Okay, today we're going to do a pre-trip on the Temsa TS35 bus. This will be for the CHP SPAB pre-trip. And first we're going to make sure that our front door of our bus is in proper working order. The seals are good, the glass is in good shape, it's not cracked, chipped, there's no illegal stickers, and that the hinges that's secure the door to the bus, okay? Also, we want to make sure that the door operates properly, so we're going to come up here to our dashboard. We're going to hit our front door button here, and that's going to close our front door, and we'll make sure the door closes properly. Okay, looks good. And then we'll hit the button one more time to open it again and make sure the door opens without any problems there. So you can see the door is opening. There's no obstructions, no resistance, no binding. Everything is good there. So the door is in good shape. Okay, next we're going to check our stairwell here. Make sure that it's free of debris or liquid, which will be a safety hazard. This looks good. You want to check your treads on your stairwell on each step. Make sure they're secure, they're not worn, and they're in good condition. You also want to check your stairwell lighting. In this case, you have this LED lighting strips here. Make sure it's operating properly, it's secure to the steps, and it's not broken. Okay, and then next we want to check the handrails. Make sure the handrails are secure to the bus, they're not broken or loose. Same thing on this side. Check your handrails, make sure they're not broken or loose, secure to the bus. Also want to check our modesty panel here on the passenger side. Make sure it's not broken or loose, secure to the bus. Then we have our CHP 292 form here. We want to pull this out and we want to show it to the test administrator and point out to this is 292, and it's a school people activity bus, and that the license plate matches the license plate on the front of the vehicle, and the vehicle identification number is clear. It's a Temsa. The name of the company is clear here, and also the inspection date was 12/11/2024, so it was within 13 months of today. So the inspection is still valid from that point when it was done. Also down here it shows that this is a 41 passenger bus vehicle. Youth bus has 41 passengers, okay? So those are things you want to point out to the test administrator when you're looking at the CHP 292 form. Moving on, we're going to check the front windshield from inside the bus. First, we're going to check the passenger side front windshield, make sure there's no chips, cracks, or illegal stickers. That should be a safety hazard. And that the windshield is attached to the bus firmly, the seals are in good condition. We're going to check the other side of the windshield on the driver's side as well for chips, cracks, illegal stickers, and then make sure it's secure to the bus and the seals are good. Looks good here. And then we're going to check our windshield wipers from the inside. Make sure they're resting against the windshield and that the wipers themselves are not frayed or cracked or worn. And these look like they're in good working order. Next we're going to check our driver blinds and make sure that they're firmly attached in place and they're in good working order. These look to be okay. Make sure you check your pupil mirror. Make sure it's firmly attached to the bus. It's not cracked or broken or has illegal stickers on it. And the mirror should be adjusted so you can see the driver's side modesty panel here all the way to the back of the bus. For the flat mirror, you want to adjust it so that you see 1 inch of your bus and 200 feet behind you. That goes for the left side as well as the right side flat mirror. On the convex mirrors, left and right, you want to be able to see your rear tires touching the ground and the lane next to you. And that goes for the right side as well. The rear tires are touching the ground and you can see the lane next to you. Also, we're going to check the driver's side window here. Make sure there's no chips or cracks or illegal stickers. Looks good. And you want to make sure that the driver's side window opens and closes. This is important for when you do stop at railroad crossings. You want to open that up to be able to hear if there's any train activity going on. Next, we're going to check our driver's side blind and make sure it's in good working order. And I'll pull the string back up again, and it looks good. Okay. Moving on, we're going to check the driver's area. And first we're going to check the driver's seat to make sure it's firmly attached to the bus. It's not broken or loose, missing any parts. You want to check the buttons here to make sure they're not broken and that they're working in good working order. We're going to check the driver's seatbelt to make sure it latches properly and the belt moves freely, which it does, and we unlatch it, and there we go. And now we're going to move into the driver's seat. Now that I'm in the driver's seat, we're going to start from left to right and check all of the items that are in this area of the bus. Here we have my driver's window, which we checked before. I just reiterate that I make sure it opens and closes properly and that it's not cracked or broken. My mirror, my right side, left side mirror, I want to make sure that I see 1 inch of my bus and 200 feet behind me. And the convex mirror, I want to make sure I see my rear tires on the ground and the lane next to me. All right, and I make sure that my windows are not cracked or broken here. This is my parking brake release lever. This also will apply the parking brake. I would push it to release the parking brake, and I would pull it to apply. You want to make sure that this is not broken and it's in good working order. Here is my mirror adjuster controller. I can adjust my left or right mirrors, and I would just go to which mirror I want to adjust, and then I would hit the arrow buttons to move the mirror accordingly to adjust it for my view. This is my mirror heater switch. So if I have condensation in my mirrors, turning that on will help the condensation dissipate from the mirror. Here's my 12-volt auxiliary supply jacks, in case I want to use phone chargers or other 12-volt operated devices that can plug in there for operation for 12-volt power. This is my emergency stop switch. I normally wouldn't touch this switch, so I would just point out that it's there and it's in good working order. This is my ignition switch. I want to turn that on to turn on the ignition. It won't start the engine, but it will turn on the ignition, which will then allow me to use the start engine button to start the engine. But we're not going to start it just right now. We'll let the ignition come on. This is my transmission controller here. I have my drive to go forward button, neutral, and then this is R for reverse. And this is my indicator to indicate what gear I'm in at the current moment. All right, we'll go through our switches here. Here's my traction control enable disable. Pushing this button will disable traction control. This is my kneeling and lifting button. If I push the button down, it kneels the bus, so it makes it easier for passengers to get off the bus when they're exiting the door. If I put the switch in the high position, it'll lift the bus, so it makes it easier to go over low points in the ground like steep driveways and so forth. This is my central locking button for the luggage bays. If I turn that on, it'll lock all of the luggage bay compartments so nobody can get in there. This is my blind left button. This will raise and lower my blinds on the driver's side. And this is the blind right button. It'll raise and lower the blind on the passenger side. It appears to be in good working order. This is my start engine button. We're going to click that button right now to start the engine. Okay, my engine is started. Next we have the cruise control on-off button. It turns my cruise control on and off. This is my following distance adjuster for the cruise control to adjust for automatic following distance behind a vehicle in front of me. This is my speed control for the cruise control to adjust the speed up or down. This is my lane departure warning enable disable to let me know if I'm exiting or leaving the lane of travel, and it helps keep the bus within the lane. This is my steering control. When I push this button, it'll release the steering column so that I can adjust it to my height and position. Push the button again to lock it in place. So this is my dimmer switch. It dims the dashboard and bus interior lights accordingly, up or down. This is my headlight switch and clearance light switch. Down position is off, center is clearance, and then high position is low beam and clearance. This is my front fog light switch to turn my front fog lights on and off. My video event switch to record a video from the dash cam in case of an event. This is my engine brake on-off switch to turn the engine brake on or off. And this sets my engine braking level to low, medium, or high when the engine brake is operating. When the engine brake is on, it'll turn off the cruise control in that case. Now I'm going to check the warning lights from the dashboard. To do that, I'm going to turn the engine off, and I'll turn the ignition back on without restarting the engine. My warning lights will appear across the top of the dash. Here I have my parking brake on warning light, my headlight on warning light. This is my high beam indicator. I have my left turn signal indicator over here. Here's my yellow soft warning light for the engine, indicating the engine has a problem that should be checked at the next stop. This is my red hard warning light stop, indicate the engine has an immediate issue, that the vehicle should be stopped immediately. Then I have my check engine light, which indicates there's an issue with one of the engine systems that's throwing a code. And then I have my ABS warning light, which indicates there's an issue with the anti-lock braking system. And finally, I have my brake system warning light indicating there's an issue with the brake system. Also, here I have my alternator battery warning light and my oil pressure warning light indicating there's no oil pressure. That's because the engine's not running yet. Now I'm going to restart my engine. And I'm going to check my 8 gauges on the dashboard here. Here I have my speedometer. Here's my fuel gauge, indicates how much fuel I have in the vehicle, which is good. Here's my diesel exhaust fluid or DEF gauge. It's at 78%. That's good. On the right side, I have my RPM gauge, and then I have my coolant temperature gauge, which is 154 degrees, so that's good. My oil pressure gauge is at 50 psi, which is good. And then I have my dual air brake system tank gauges for both air tanks. The pressure gauges is number 1 tank is at 122 psi, which is good, and number 2 tank is at 134 psi, which is good. With the steering wheel, you want to make sure that there's no more than 2 inches of play in the steering wheel when you move it left to right. As you can see, there's about 2 inches there, and so the play of the steering wheel is less than 2 inches. It's good. Here on my turn signal switch, I'm going to turn the left turn signal on to make sure that the left turn indicator comes on. Hit the right switch to make sure the right indicator comes on, which is good. This also works my windshield wipers, so I'm going to push it in forward to turn on the windshield wipers. And I can also turn on the windshield wipers by themselves without activating the washers by turning the switch up or down and adjusting the speed. There's fastest, medium, and low speed. Okay, this is also my high beam switch. If I turn that up, it'll turn on the high beams and then turn it off. And it's also as my horn switch here for the air horn. Next, I'm going to check my pedal area in my driver's area here. This is my service brake pedal. This is my accelerator pedal. And make sure there's no objects or debris that around the pedal area there that would interfere with the safe operation of the pedals. Everything looks to be in good working order here. Moving on to the right driver panel, I have my aisle light button, which turns the aisle light in the passenger compartment on and off. This is the secret switch that has to be engaged as well when I want to start the engine. If this switch is not on, the engine won't start. This is my driver light switch, which turns the driver light over the driver's area on and off. This is my interior light switch, which turns the interior lights in the passenger compartment on and off. There's an off setting, a medium setting, and a high setting. This is my reading light switch, which turns the reading lights over the passenger seats on and off, and also a low setting and a high setting. This is my night light setting, so I can turn this on in the passenger compartment when it's dark, and I want to have some illumination without it being a distraction to the driver. And this is my luggage lighting switch, which turns on the lights in the luggage compartment down below. Here I also have my AM/FM radio DVD entertainment console here. Then I have my front door switch, which opens and closes the front door. This is my emergency light management set reset button. This is my side lights disable button, which disables the side lights on the side of the bus where the luggage compartment bay doors are. This is my lamp test button, which turns on all the lamps on the exterior of the bus so I can check them all at one time. And this is my hazard 4-way flasher button, which turns on my hazard 4-way flashers on the outside of the bus. This is my driver's area air conditioning controller. Here I have my fan speed controller, my AC on-off switch, and this is my temperature control. I have my air recirculation on-off switch. Here I have my upper vent switch, my defroster heater switch, and then defroster switch to make sure the air is coming out of the defroster vents at the top. This is my passenger compartment air conditioning controller. It has an on-off switch here. My fan control switch. This turns off the recirculating air feature. This adjusts my temperature up and down, and this turns on the air conditioning or the heater. Now we're ready to check the exterior lights on the vehicle to make sure they're working. On this bus, we have a lamp test switch that we can turn on that will activate all the lights at the same time, so we can check them without having to activate the individual switches. All right, on the front of my bus, I'm going to be checking all my lights starting at the top. Here I have my amber clearance lights. I have 5 of them, and the lights are on. They're in good working order. On the passenger side of the bus, I have my daytime running lights, which are all on. They're clear in color. They're in good working order. Here's my right turn signals light, along with the hazard light, and it's amber in color. It's in good working order. My high beam and my low beam lights are on. This is my fog light down here. They're all clear in color and they're in good working order. On the driver's side, I have my daytime running lights that are on and in good working order. My 4-way and my flasher light, which is in good working order. Also the turn signal switch here, turn signal light. My high and low beam good in order, and then my fog light is in good working order down here. While I'm looking at the front of the bus, I'm also going to check and make sure that the front of the bus has no damage to the front, and also point out any damage that would be there. This bus has little scratches, stuff, not bad. Nothing that's going to be a safety issue. But also, the bumper appears to be in good working order. The reflectors, which are amber in color, appear to be in good working order, not cracked or broken. Now I'll be looking underneath my bus for any puddles on the ground which indicate a fluid leak, and for any hoses or wires that are hanging low and could pose a safety hazard. I don't see anything here. Everything seems to be in good working order. Also checking the bus to make sure it's not leaning to the left or right, which would indicate a suspension or tire problem. This bus is level. It appears to be in good working order. I want to check my side mirrors, make sure they're securely attached to the bus on the right-hand side. It appears to be in good working order. I'm checking my windshield seals, make sure they're not cracked or broken. And the windshield is attached to the outside properly. There's no cracks, chips, or illegal stickers. I'm checking my windshield wiper arm, make sure that the arm is not cracked or broken. The wiper is securely attached to the arm, and the arm is attached to the bus. And there's proper tension for the windshield wiper against the windshield. Same thing with the driver's side windshield wiper. Check and make sure that the arm is not cracked or broken. The wiper is securely attached to the arm. The wiper itself is not frayed or cracked. And the arm is attached securely to the bus, and there's proper tension against the windshield. Checking my driver's side windshield, make sure the seal is good, there's no cracks or leaks. The windshield is securely mounted to the bus, there's no chips or cracks or stickers. And then I check my side view mirror over here on the driver's side to make sure it's securely attached to the bus and it's not loose here. Lastly, for the front of the bus, make sure you check your license plate to make sure it's securely attached to the bus. It's clean and the sticker is current. The registration is 2026. And this is the license number that should match the number on the CHP 292 form. Now we're going to check the passenger side of the bus for the proper operation of the lights. At the top of the bus I have my clearance lights. The front 2 lights are amber in color and the rear one is red in color. They're all on and they're all working properly and they're all secure to the bus. Now I'm checking my side windows. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows. All of them are in good working order. They're attached to the bus. There's no cracks, chips, or illegal stickers. I'm also checking the side of the bus to make sure there's no visible damage that would be a safety issue. Besides a few scratches and scuffs, there's no major issues. While I'm here, I'm going to check my front steering tire and rim for proper operation. First, you would normally use a tread depth gauge to verify that the tread depth on the front steering tire is no less than 4/32 of an inch. Also want to check to make sure the tread has even wear. Uneven wear could indicate an alignment or suspension issue. I'm going to check the side of the tire for any abrasions, cracks, tears, or bulges. It appears to be in good working order. You would also want to make sure that using a tire pressure gauge, the pressure of the tire is correct before heading out on your trip. This is the valve stem for the tire. You want to make sure it's in good working order, it's not cracked, broken, or leaking, and it's present where it's supposed to be. This is my rim. I'm going to check it for any cracks, illegal holes, or welds. It appears to be in good working order. You also want to check your lug nuts to make sure they're all tight. they're not loose. I also would check for shiny threads or rust streaks would indicate looseness. If my hub plate was off, I would check the hub nuts below this to make sure they're also tight as well. But in this case, they're covered up by this plate, and so I cannot see them here. This bus has an air suspension rather than leaf spring. So if I could see the suspension components behind the tire, I would check to make sure that the air spring mount is properly mounted to the frame, has no loose bolts, or it's not cracked or broken. I also check to make sure that the air spring itself has no bulges or leaks or tears in it, and it's working properly. And also to check the shock absorber to make sure it's not leaking or broken and it's properly attached to the suspension at both ends. Also on this bus we have four-wheel disc brake. So if I could see the brake components, I would check to make sure that the brake chamber is properly attached to the bus and is not cracked or broken, and make sure that the caliper itself is attached to the wheel assembly, it's not cracked or broken. And also check to make sure that the brake pads are in good working order, they're not contaminated, and that there's plenty of thickness on there so they're not worn excessively thin. Also want to check the rotor to make sure that the rotor is smooth and it's not contaminated with oil or grease, and everything's working properly there. Lastly, on the brake system, you want to check the hoses and lines to make sure they're not leaking. You want to listen for leaks and also look and see if you see any visual signs for leaks there. Check your fender flares, make sure they're in good condition, and also check your mud flaps here to make sure they're in good condition and properly attached to the bus. Moving on, I'm going to check my fuel filler compartment. This is my fuel filler door. Make sure it's in good working order and it's securely attached to the bus and open closes properly. This is my fuel filler cap. I want to make sure that it's tight on the tank and not loose. I'm going to check inside to make sure the tank is properly strapped in. The straps are in good condition, they're tight, they're not loose. Also checking to make sure that the fittings and hoses are tight and they're not leaking. I'm also going to check underneath the vehicle for any bubbles in this area, which will indicate a fuel leak, and I don't see any. So the fuel tank in this area needs to be in really good working order, okay? Next I'm going to check to make sure that my luggage compartment is secure. And this is my side lights that are working properly here. I also have my lower marker light, which is amber in color, and it's on, it's working properly, it's not cracked or broken. Another lower marker light, which is amber in color, it's on, it's not cracked or broken. Also going to check my other luggage compartment, make sure that it's secure. It's good, okay. This is my four-way flasher and light turn signal indicator light. The side of the bus, it's flashing, it's on and off, it's not cracked or broken, it's working right. This is my side light for when I'm reversing. It's in good working order, the lights are on, and it's attached to the bus. Okay, this is my drive axle tire here. I have a dual tire system here, so I have a tire behind this one. And on this tire, I'm checking the tread to make sure it's worn evenly. And on both tires, I'm checking the tread to make sure that the tread depth is no less than 2/32 of an inch in depth. I'll use a tread depth gauge to check that. Anything less than 2/32 of an inch in tread depth, the tire needs to be replaced immediately. I'm also going to check my sidewall of my tire, make sure there's no bulges, cracks, or cuts. Make sure the tire is not leaking. I don't hear any leaks. And we'll check the inside of my tire here for the bud spacing to make sure the bud spacing is clear. There's no debris between the tires and the bud spacing is uniform. This is my rim. I check my rim for any illegal holes or welds or cracks. I don't see any. This is my valve stem for the inside tire. I will check the air pressure on that tire with a pressure gauge to make sure it's at the proper reading. Down here I have my valve stem for the outside tire. I make sure that these valve stems are not cracked or broken and they're secure in their position. And I would check the air pressure on the outside tire with this valve stem here. Also I want to check my lug nuts on this rim, make sure they're not loose. Back is twisted. Make sure I don't see any rust streaks or shiny threads that indicate looseness. Also want to check my hub nuts on this one here to make sure these are tight. not loose or show any signs of looseness, such as rust streaks or shiny threads. Behind the tire, I have my disc brake system once again. So on this one I want to check, as I can see that I would check to make sure my brake chamber is attached to the bus and it's not cracked or broken. And I would check the caliper, make sure it's securely attached, it's not cracked or broken, it's not loose. Check the brake pads to make sure they have proper thickness and not contaminated. And also check the rotor to make sure it's not warped, cracked, or scored, indicating that the pads are worn thin. Lastly, I'll check the brake lines and hoses to make sure they're not leaking and they're properly attached and tight at the ends where the fittings are. Also on my air suspension, from the back here, I will check my air spring mount for the frame, make sure that's properly mounted. It's not cracked or broken and no loose parts. Also going to check the air spring itself to make sure there's no cracks, or cuts, or bulges. It's not leaking. I'll listen for leaks and also look for leaks. And also check the shock absorber to make sure it's properly attached, it's not broken, and it's not leaking. Another thing I want to mention is that if this vehicle had leaf spring suspensions, you want to point out to the test administrator that you want to check the U-bolts that hold the leaf springs in place, make sure they're not cracked, broken, missing, or missing any nuts or bolts. And also that the leaf springs are in place and they're not missing or shifted out of place. This is my diesel exhaust fluid filler door. I would open it to check and make sure that it works properly and it's attached to the bus and closes properly as well. Inside, I check to make sure that my diesel exhaust fluid or DEF filler cap is tight and in place. It looks to be in good working order. I'll check the tank itself to make sure it's strapped in properly and that the hoses and fittings on it are tight and not leaking. And then also going to check at the bottom of the ground for these puddles, which indicate my DEF fluid leaking on the ground. Everything's in good working order for this vehicle in regards to the DEF fluid. This is my vent panel for my exhaust system. Behind here is my exhaust regeneration system. I want to make sure the vent is clear of any debris to allow air to flow through freely through the exhaust components. Also, here's my rear red marker light down here. It's on, it's working, it's secured to the bus. Also, my red reflector here is not cracked or broken, it's secured to the bus. Now I'm at the back of my bus. I want to check my clearance lights at the top of my bus, make sure they're working. There are 5 of them, they're red in color, they're secured to the bus, and they're all on, so they're working properly. My rear window appears to be in good working order, there's no cracks or chips, and no illegal stickers. My brake lights here are working properly, they're on, and they're secured to the bus. The bus itself has no major issues or damage. Inside the bus, minimal. And my bumper looks good. My amber turn signal and forward flashing lights are working. They're flashing on and off. My tail lights are red in color. They're good to be good on. My brake lights are on both sides. They're not cracked or broken. And they're secure to the bus. My reverse lights are clear and color. My red reflectors at the bottom here are in good working order and tractor broken. My exhaust pipe is not bent or broken and it's protruded no more than 2 inches from the rear bumper of the bus. Okay, now I'm going to check my engine compartment. Alright, I'll turn the engine off so you can hear me better. This is my emergency stop switch. I can use it to turn off the engine, and then I can also use it to start it again. I can use this switch here to turn it on and off. This is the ignition switch. to make sure nobody can start the engine from the inside when it's off. Okay? This is my light switch for inside the engine compartment, so I can turn on a light so I can see better. Okay, now we're going to check the components in the engine compartment on the pre-trip, starting from left to right. So on the left side of my compartment, I got my cooling fan here for the radiator. I check to make sure it spins freely, and the blades are all intact, there's no cracks, and it's not broken. Next, I'm going to check the fan belt here, make sure it's not worn excessively or shows any sign of wear, and make sure that the fan belt on the longest span is less than 1 inch of play in it, which looks good. And the belt is properly mounted, the tension seems to be good, and the belt is in good condition. Okay, next I'm going to check my air filter chamber, make sure it's properly attached and sealed, and it's properly attached to the vehicle. It's a good working order. This is my coolant tank. I would check the level by looking at the sight gauge here. It is at the proper level. This is my cap. I would use to fill it with fluid if I needed to. I check around it for any leaks and make sure it's securely attached to the bus, and it still looks like it's in good working order, so we're good there. Okay, next I want to come down here and check my alternators. They are attached to the engine. Looks like the mounts are in good working order, not cracked or broken. There's no missing bolts. There's no cracks or damage to the alternators themselves. The wires are probably connected to the back. The cables are connected to the back properly. And they're belt driven by the same belt that drives the water pump. I check and make sure there's less than 1 inch of play on the longest span of that belt. And also check the water pump, make sure it's not leaking, that it's properly attached to the engine, not missing any bolts. This one looks like it's in good working order. This is my belt tensioner too that keeps the tension on the belt here. It looks like it's all in good working order here. Okay. Moving across my engine here, I have my air conditioning, my air compressor for the brake system. It's located in the back there. It's gear driven, so it's kind of difficult to see from the front, but I would check and make sure that the hoses and lines that attach to it are not leaking air. I don't hear any leaks, I don't see any leaks, and make sure that's all in good condition. Okay. Then I have my power steering fluid reservoir here. The power steering pump is also gear driven, and it's attached to the back of the engine. So I want to make sure the fluid is at the proper level, and that the canister is in good condition. It's not cracked or broken, it's not leaking, and the hoses go back to the engine. They're not leaking and have any loose clamps or anything like that. The power steering system seems to be in good condition. Here is my air conditioning compressor. It's properly mounted to the frame, and the hoses in the top along with the fittings appear to all be in good condition and are tight and sealed. There's no leaks. And it's belt driven. This is my belt for the air conditioning compressor. On the longest span, I check to make sure it has less than 1 inch of play, which it does. And so that's in good condition. Inside here, behind the hose here, I have my dipstick for my oil. I use that to check the oil level to make sure it's at a safe operating level, so that the fluid level, the oil level on the engine is within a safe range. And then I have my transmission fluid dipstick here to check the transmission fluid level in the transmission to make sure it's at a safe level. Now, down below, underneath the engine, I would check, if I could see, I check to make sure that the U-bolts that hold the engine in place are intact, they're not loose or missing, and they have the proper hardware with them, and everything is tight. This appears to be in good working order. And also would check the drive shaft to make sure it's not twisted or cracked or broken, and the U-joints are not excessively worn or loose or missing any parts. And the drive shaft in this bus appears to be in good working order. On the right side of the bus, I'm going to check the exhaust system to make sure that it's properly mounted, it's not loose, it doesn't have any exhaust leaks. I'm looking for like carbon soot, which indicate an exhaust leak. I'm looking to make sure it's all in good working order and making sure there's not overheating. I think everything on this bus looks to be in good working order for the exhaust system. Finally, I'm going to check the overall area of the engine compartment to make sure there's no wires or hoses that are hanging loose, which could be a safety hazard. Everything seems to be tight and in good working order here. Now that all the components of the engine compartment have been checked, we're going to start the engine from back here and we'll move on to the driver's side of the bus. We're going to close the engine compartment door and make sure it's secure. Also, you want to check to make sure your license plate lights are on as well down here. make sure this vent is free of any obstructions and the air is flowing smoothly through to cool the radiator. Looking at the side vents, I have my furnace lights at the top. The two in front are amber, the back one is red. They're all on. They're secured in the bus. They're in good working order. I have my 5 windows on the side of my bus here. They are in good working order. There's no cracks or chips or illegal stickers. The side of my bus, I'm looking for any kind of damage. On the side of the bus, I have like maybe a ding right here, and maybe some chips, but pretty minor issues with the this is my side marker light here, and reverse light. That's working properly. It's on. It's not damaged. It's connected to the bus. This is my 4-way flasher and turn signal side indicator lamp. It's amber in color. It's flashing on, which is good, and it's secured. The bus is not cracked or broken. This is my driver's side drive axle tire. And I also have another tire on the inside like I did on the other side. Once again, you want to check and make sure the tread on these tires are worn evenly. And on the back tire, the tread depth can be no less than 2/32 of an inch. You want to check that with a tread depth gauge. You want to check both tires to make sure the tread is worn evenly. Also, you want to check the bud spacing between the tires to make sure that it's consistent, it's even, and there's no debris between the tires. Next, you want to check the sidewall of the tires to make sure there's no bulges, cracks, or tears, which would be a safety issue. And you also want to check the air in the tires using the valve stem. This is the valve stem for the back tire. Make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's properly in place. And this is the valve stem for the outside tire. Make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's in place. You want to check the rim to make sure it's not cracked. It has no illegal holes or welds. It appears to be in good working order. And you want to check your lug nuts to make sure they're all tight and that they're not loose. Or are you looking for rust, streaks, or shining threads which indicate looseness? These look to be in good working order. Also want to check your hub nuts to make sure they're tight and they're not loose. There's no rust streaks or shining threads which indicate looseness. Once again, on the back side of the tire, I have my air spring suspension, and if I could see that, I would check to make sure that the air spring mount is mounted to the frame properly, it's not cracked or broken, and also all the proper hardware is tight. Make sure the air spring itself has no bulges or cracks or leaks, and it's in good working order, and then also make sure the shock absorber is tight at both ends, is not bent or broken, and is not showing any sign of leakage. Okay, and also my brake component for this is a disc brake system. So I would check my brake chamber for any cracks, looseness, or any missing hardware. I would check my caliper, make sure it's tight to the wheel assembly and that it's not loose or broken. I would check my brake pads to make sure they're not excessively worn thin or contaminated with oil. And I would check the motor for any cracks, warpage, or damage, or contamination. Lastly, for the brake system, I would check my hoses and lines to make sure they're tight at both ends and they're not leaking air. As I move forward from the rear of the bus, I'm going to check the remainder of my lights. Here's my marker lights here in the amber in color. They're both on. They're secured to the bus and in good working order. Here's my side light for my luggage bay door. It's on. It's in good working order. It's secured to the bus. I check my luggage compartment doors to make sure they're tight and secure. They're in good working order. Here is my battery power switch door. Make sure the door is firmly attached to the bus, it's in good working order, and shuts and closes properly. And inside is my battery switch. When I leave the bus sitting for any length of time, I would turn this to the off position and turn off the power to the bus. And then when I want to restart the bus, I would turn it back to this position so that the battery power is re-engaged and allow me to start the bus. This is my battery compartment. I want to make sure that my battery compartment door opens and closes properly. The hinges are tight to the frame. It works okay. It's good. Inside here I have my batteries. I make sure my batteries are firmly attached to the frame and they're not cracked or broken or leaking any fluid. check the top of the battery for any corrosion. Make sure that the terminals are properly attached to the battery, they're tight, and there's no corrosion on the wires or terminals there. This bus does not use fuses. It uses resettable circuit breakers, and so I don't need to have any spare fuses on this bus. But that's where I would go if I have a circuit breaker that trips. I would go there to reset the circuit breaker if need be. Lastly, when you close this door, before you close it, check to make sure that there's no loose wires or hoses that are hanging loose that could be a safety hazard. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and close this door and make sure that it closes securely. Okay. Now I have my clear color side indicator light, and it's on. It's in good working order, and it's secured to the bus. Here I have my four-way flasher left turn signal indicator side indicator light. It's flashing on and off, and it's secured to the bus as I cracked it broken. Here I have my front steering tire on the driver's side. Once again, on this tire here, minimum tread depth is 4/32 of an inch. I'll check that with a tread depth gauge. Also checking the tread wear for any unusual uneven wear, which indicate an alignment or suspension problem. The tread wear, the tread in this tire appears to be in good condition and is at the proper tread depth. I'm going to check my tire sidewall for any bulges, cuts, or abrasions, which could be a safety hazard. I'm checking my rim for any cracks, illegal holes, or welds, which would be a safety hazard. I don't see any. I'm going to check my lug nuts to make sure they're tight. I'm checking for any shiny threads or rust streaks to indicate looseness. Once again, on my front steering tire, I have this plate covering up my hub nuts. If I can see my hub nuts and access them, I'm going to check to make sure they're all tight as well. In this case, they're covered by this plate, so we'll assume that they're working order. Okay, on the back behind the tire, I have my air suspension once again, so I'm going to check my air spring mount, make sure it's properly mounted to the frame with the proper hardware. It's not cracked or broken, and it's not loose. I'm checking the air spring itself for any abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks. And I'm checking the shock absorber for any cracks, breakage, it's bent, or it's leaking. Make sure the shock absorber is attached to both ends securely. All right? On this particular side of the vehicle, I have my front compartment here. And there I have my windshield washer fluid tank, which holds the fluid for the windshield washer. Check to make sure that it's the proper level. Here I have my triangles for if I have to pull over the side of the road and I need to put these out for a warning. I would always rotate checking one of these each trip to make sure they're in proper condition and ready to go. For an example, on a two-lane road, undivided highway, you would set your triangles up so you have one in the front, 100 feet from the bus, and then 10 feet, another 100 feet from the back of the bus. On a divided highway, where traffic is only going one direction, you would set the triangles up at the back of the bus 10, 100, and 200 feet. On a curve or a hill, you make sure the triangles are set up within 500 feet of the front or the back of the bus, depending on the situation. Okay. If I could see behind this panel here, I would see my steering components, which would be my steering box, my pitman arm, and my steering linkages, and they appear to be in good working order. Now I'm going to close the compartment door to make sure it closes properly, and it's tight. Here I have my amber reflector in the front. It's not cracked or broken. It's secured to the bus. Also checking the outside of my driver's side window here. On the outside, it appears to be in good working order. There's no cracks, cuts, or chips, or illegal stickers there. Now that we're inside the bus, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my lamp test switch, and I'm going to turn off my engine, and we'll proceed to check the items in the passenger compartment of the bus, starting with the fire extinguisher. In order to check the fire extinguisher, I'm going to pull it from its holder here. So what we're looking for on the fire extinguisher is, first of all, you want to make sure that the seal is intact and the pin is in place. That means that it has not been used, okay? And then you got your nozzle here. You want to make sure it's in good working order, it's not cracked or broken, and it's clear of any obstructions on the other end. You want to make sure that the gauge on the extinguisher indicates that it's fully charged. And you want to make sure that the rating on the extinguisher is at least 8 BC for this bus. And this one is at 40 BC, so this far exceeds the recommendations for this bus. You want to check and make sure the cylinder has no physical damage. And you want to shake it to make sure the contents have not settled. Lastly, you want to check the inspection tag. And this, see when it was inspected. This was inspected in March of 2005. So hasn't been more than 12 months since the inspection, so the inspection and the tag is still valid. It hasn't expired. Okay. Okay, fire extinguisher is back in place and secure. Now we'll move on. We're going to check our passenger seats to make sure they're all secure to the bus, not loose. Missing any hold down bolts, which would be a security issue or a safety issue. Make sure they're all in good shape. And also check the ones back here as well. Okay, they're all in good shape. Also want to check, make sure there's no obstructions in the luggage compartment, that anything is hanging down, or it could be a safety issue, any loose objects up here that could be a safety issue. They could fall down into the passengers. You want to check, make sure your aisle is clear, there's no obstructions, trash or debris or objects inside the aisle, which would be a safety issue in case of an emergency if people need to move quickly to get out of the bus. I want to check my passenger seat belts. I will do that by checking 3 seats each trip to make sure that the belts are working properly. You just want to grab the belt and pull it, make sure the belt moves freely and that the latch works. It delatches, okay? And this one, make sure the belt moves freely, it latches and unlatches, okay? And we'll check one more here. Same thing again here, make sure the belt moves freely, it latches and unlatches. Okay, there you go. And so eventually you'll have checked all of them as you work progressively through the days of checking the bus. You'll eventually have checked all of them. Make sure they're all in good working order. Also want to check and make sure that my side vents or air vents and lights above each passenger seating area is in good working order. Nothing's broken. These are all in good working order. So just walk back and check each one side by side. Make sure the vents are not broken or have any issues. That would be a safety issue or an annoyance to the passenger because they're not working. Okay? Also want to check our emergency exits. Here we have in the roof is our emergency exit for the roof. Now this particular bus, it's very difficult to get this back into place, so I wouldn't recommend actually undoing this. Just kind of go through the motions like you're doing it to the test administrator, but you would pull this knob forward and then push the lid out and over to open the hatch, okay? And then on the side windows here, you'll make sure you open these windows up and you open them up completely and then close them again. Because the test administrator is going to be looking to make sure you do that. So you want to go to each one of these and pull the lever and open it and let it close, okay? We do that in every window. This one here. And lastly, this one here. Okay, so all of our window emergency exits are in good working order. Do we have one more over here? No? I believe that's it. And also, lastly, you want to make sure that your front door emergency exit is working, so you would go ahead and demonstrate that as well. All you need to do is just turn this dial and make the arrows you need to push out on the ball. Okay. We'll put that back so the door will shut properly. Okay, now we're going to do our air brake check. And the air brake has several tests, which is the cut-in, cut-out test, the static test, the applied test, and we have the low air warning test, and then we have the parking brake test and the service brake test. And I'm going to start the engine to make that happen. For our air brake test, we're going to be looking at the number 1 pressure gauge here, which currently reads 132 psi. So it's at the high end of the normal pressure range scale. The first test we're going to do is the cut-in, cut-out test. And this test verifies that the compressor cuts in and cuts out at the proper times in order to maintain a normal range of pressure in the air tanks. So since this pressure is already at the high end, we're going to release pressure in the system to see if the air compressor will kick in and start to refill the tank with more air. So right now it's at 132 psi. I'm going to step on the brake. Okay, and watch it drop. It's now dropped to 110 psi. And it's kind of holding there. I'm going to press the brake pedal again. And now it's dropped to 94 psi. And let's see if it goes. See, now it's starting to go up from there. So the compressor has kicked in at 94 psi. So the cut-in test is good. Now we're going to see where it cuts out. I'm going to raise the engine RPM some to speed up the process here. About 1500 RPM. And we'll see what the pressure cuts out at here. Okay, so the pressure has gone up to 134 psi. And it has not risen any further. So it appears that the pressure cut out somewhere between 130 and 133 psi. Normally the cutout test, the compressor should cut out before it reaches 130 psi, and the cut-in test, the compressor should cut in before it reaches 85 psi. In this case, it cut in at 94 and it cut out at 133, so this test is good on this vehicle. The cut-in, cut-out test is a pass. Okay, next we're going to do the static test, and that one we're going to turn the engine off, and we're going to look and see if we lose any pressure on the first tank here. In this case, we'll need a timer so we can time it for 1 minute. So I'm going to use my timer on my phone here. Okay, I'm going to turn off my engine, and I'm going to turn the ignition back on with the engine off so that it does not supply air to the brake system. We'll wait for the dashboard to come back up here. Okay, my gauge is at 130 psi. It's settling there. It's 129 psi. Okay, I'm going to set my timer now, and I want to make sure that the pressure on this gauge does not drop more than 2 psi within 1 minute. Okay, a minute is up, and my pressure is still at 129 psi. So I did not lose more than 2 psi during this test, so the static test is good on this system. The static test is passed. Now we're going to do the applied brake test. To this test, I'm going to release my parking brake as I apply the service brake. And I'm going to hold the service brake pedal down, and I'm going to wait for my PSI on my gauge to settle. And it's settled at 88 psi. So I'm going to go ahead and start my timer. And I'm going to hold the pedal down on the service brake for 1 minute. And I'm going to make sure that my pressure doesn't drop more than 3 psi. If I lose more than 3 psi in 1 minute, then the test will have failed. So my starting PSI was 88. And currently now my PSI is at 90. So looks like this test is going to be a good one, but we'll let it go the full minute to see what happens. Okay, my minute is up, and my pressure has not dropped more than 3 psi within 1 minute, so this test is good. The applied test is good. So the static test tests the tank for any leaks. The applied test checks the brake hoses and lines of the entire system for any leaks. In this case, both tests have passed, so the entire system does not have any air leaks, so everything is good. Now we're going to do the low air warning test. We should have a visual or audible warning alarm that comes on, or both, when the pressure drops below 65 psi. So I'm going to relieve pressure on the brake system here and see at what point our low air warning device comes on. Okay, so you saw at 79 psi, I have a visual warning and also had an audible warning. There it goes again. So that came on at 79 psi, which is more than 65 psi. So the low air warning test is good in this system. Okay, now I'm going to start the engine. And we're going to do the parking brake test. Alright, I got my foot on the service brake, my parking brake is released, my engine's running, and I'm going to put my transmission in drive. And I'm going to let the vehicle roll forward. I'm going to apply the parking brake to make sure it stops properly. Okay, the parking brake held, and that means the parking brake test was successful. Okay, the next test you're going to do is the service brake test. And in this particular test, you're not going to have to actually do it, but you just need to describe what you're going to do. In that case, you're going to release the parking brake, put the vehicle in drive, and let the vehicle roll forward 5 miles an hour, and then apply the service brake normally to make sure that it doesn't pull from one side or the other, and that the stopping distance is appropriate for the brakes. And you will do that test twice before your first trip on a SPAB job. Now that my trip is completed and all my passengers are off the bus, the very last thing I want to do is I want to go and check the passenger compartment to make sure all the passengers have exited the bus safely and that there was no personal belongings left behind. You also want to double check your restroom to make sure nobody was left inside. Hopefully not. And also make sure that some passenger didn't leave their personal belongings inside here as well. Everything seems to be in good working order. Alright, that completes the pre-trip of the Temsa T35 bus. Now remember, when you're doing the CHP test, you have to complete the pre-trip in 45 minutes. So it's important for you to be efficient with your time and make sure you check things on the outside of the vehicle when you're already standing there, not having to walk back and forth out of the vehicle multiple times in order to check things, as we've shown you in this video. Good luck on your test, and I'm sure you're going to be a success as a SPAB driver for ELC.